Whoa. 60 pounds and 17 years later looks a lot different, huh? I'll try not to stare at the paper the whole time, but I've got a lot I want to say, so I appreciate it. What a spectacular honor. Congratulations to the other remarkable athletes for your accomplishment. It's really great. I'm so happy to be here. It's rare that we get an opportunity to publicly acknowledge those that have helped us along our way. Firstly, I'd like to pay homage to Thomas Hall, Union class of 1967, who was probably the most influential high school teacher I ever had. Incidentally, he was also a diver, so I want to thank him for that. Secondly, I'd like to thank Jim McLaughlin, obviously, our athletic director, and my former coach. As many of us here know and can appreciate, coach is probably the most revered title you can give somebody, so I'm going to continue to refer to him as coach. I'd also like to thank Coach Audino, who I think is here tonight. He was also instrumental in getting me here to Union as a football recruit. As a lifelong soccer player, I was a pretty good place kicker, so I was recruited to kick at Syracuse and Georgetown and a number of really large schools, mostly due to the fact that I never missed a field goal in high school. I should probably mention I never made one at Union either. So, in fact, I remember one episode of which I have a particular amount of pride. I was at a game and I had to kick an onside kick, and I kicked it out of bounds in the air. So, yeah, and it was nice because my older brother and my roommate happened to be there at that game, so that was really great. My soccer skills led to great success on the rugby field as well. I spent 4 years playing rugby, and I won't mention that. That was already mentioned. So I enjoyed my time on the football field and the soccer field and the rugby pitch, but my real interest and my abilities were probably best reflected in springboard diving. I'd like to take a moment to thank my late father, Gary Field, for perhaps inadvertently sparking my interest in diving. Clearly, Greg Louganis was an inspiration, obviously. But my family and friends need to forgive me for sharing a story which they've probably heard 1,000 times, but I'll share it with you. As a young boy, my family and I spent summer vacations at a place called Allegheny State Park in western New York. And there was a large lake there with a floating dock about 100 yards offshore. And on that dock there was an old rickety diving board. And one summer afternoon when I was about 8 years old, I'd spent hours doing jackknives and cannonballs and such. My father swam out. He didn't really say much, as was often the case. But with a certain confidence, he approached the diving board and he stood there for a moment. And then he performed a 103C. That's a 1.5 in lay terminology, or a flip into a dive for those that don't understand lay terminology. Yeah, so there happened to be a crowd there that day, and they were all cheering, so I thought that was pretty cool. He didn't say a word. He simply swam back to shore and finished his cigarette and his beer. Acting nonchalantly after doing something cool, I think was the original form of humble bragging. I, on the other hand, spent the next eternity, trying to replicate that and do it. So I would smack and smack and smack and smack and smack until finally I turned it over. To this day, I think I walked on water when I, swam back to shore to tell my father what I had just done. So I just couldn't get there quickly enough. So when I ran to my father, I told him about my feat. And he said, well, let me see. So he swam back out to the dock. And obviously I smacked him the first attempt, naturally. But on the next one I turned it over and probably received the best reward a child can receive from his father, a high five, and a pat in the head. So that was pretty neat. And obviously I was hooked at that point. My wife, or B.F. Skinner and my wife, Dr. Stacy Field, would probably call that operant conditioning or positive reinforcement. But obviously it worked. I would also be remiss without thanking my mother and my brothers and sisters. When it comes to athletics particularly, I really feel that those of us that grew up with siblings who were similar in age, compared to households with maybe only one child, we have a distinct advantage. There's really no greater motivation than beating your older brother or your older sister at something, but also at the same time preventing your younger siblings from beating you in the same thing. So it's a great motivation. My mother obviously deserves gratitude beyond my ability to express, so thanks, Mom. I'd also like to thank my coach, Maria Kumaraswamy Falkenstein. I'm not sure if she's here tonight. It's interesting to note that although I dove on a varsity swim team between like 7th grade and 12th grade, I never actually had a diving coach until I came to Union. So my diving successes can mostly be attributed to Maria and to the coaching staff. Obviously, another inductee, Susan Bassett, played a role. She was the coach at the time. And while I'm talking about coaches, I want to make sure I thank Scott and his assistant for being so welcoming today, welcoming me back. I stopped by the swim team today to say hello and watch them practice, so that was really appreciated. Lastly, I'd like to thank Union College. Not only did Union introduce me to my closest friends, many of whom are here tonight, and I should mention the research capabilities here are fantastic. You can see they placed a lot of my friends closest to the bar and closest to the door. So that's a testament to the background checks that the athletic department performed. So not only did Union introduce me to my closest friends, it also introduced me to my wife. And so I thank you for that. And my children, our children, thank you, Ben and Sophie. I think Stacy also submitted my nomination, or processed that or initiated that process, so thank you, sweetheart. I'll close by saying something that we all know and we all understand. Union College is an exception. Union College is exceptional. It's extraordinary. Only at such an institution could the ideals of sportsmanship, scholarship, or perhaps along with friendship, love, and truth, flourish so freely. Thank you, Union. As Nobel laureate Elihu Root noted, no human institution lasts long unless it meets a human need. Union College, please continue to do so. Thanks so much.